Welcome, everybody, to Postgame Takeaways with Inside ND Sports. I'm Tyler James. He's the one and only Eric Hansen. We're coming to you from Eric's humble abode to share our postgame takeaways with Notre Dame's 31-24 victory over Louisville. Eric, that was a weird game to say the least, and it seemingly had a bit of everything. But what was your biggest takeaway from this win over the number 15 team in the country?
My biggest takeaway was I feel like this Notre Dame team finally has an identity, and what it is one that's going to rise to the occasion from adversity. Some of it being self-imposed earlier in the season with the Northern Illinois game, but all kinds of injuries, a lot of banter about who the starting quarterback should be, and yet against, I think, a pretty good Louisville team, Notre Dame made the big plays to win this game. How about you, Tyler?
Yeah, I understand the angst with the offense because of the long droughts that there was. Basically, 6 meaningful drives and 1 scoring play on those drives in the middle of the game, and that was a field goal, and that was the result of a Xavier Watts interception and not a result of anything the offense really did. But those 21 points in the first quarter were huge. You can't just forget those. And the touchdown drive in the fourth quarter was exactly what was needed. So I think the good slightly outweighed the bad for Notre Dame's offense. I think this is a pretty good Louisville defense. And so there's still plenty of progress to be had. No one should be arguing that this is like a complete offense and this is what Notre Dame wants its offense to be in the long run. But it had enough to get the job done today, even in some tough circumstances. And I know as a Notre Dame fan, you want to ask for more, but I think as long as you're picking up victories, I think you have to understand that this is continuing to be a work in progress.
Well, I think that some people, especially in light of the Northern Illinois game, would like more redemption. They'd like more perfection. And I think we're seeing incremental progress with this team. And I think that's really what you can ask in September, especially the way this team was constructed. Sometimes you turn on the TV and you see other teams and you say, well, why doesn't the team look like that? And yet maybe Ole Miss was one of those teams and they end up losing at home to Kentucky today. It's just, I think there's kind of a battle going on between what this team can be and what this team is not. And I do think during the bye week, Marcus Freeman has to look at both of those. I think as a coach, you need to look at both critically how you can improve your team as well as be encouraged by the things that they are doing well. I think you can marry those two concepts. I do think the biggest part of that from a fan standpoint is Riley Leonard. I don't know that that's Marcus Freeman's. In fact, I know it's not even near the top of his list. Near the top of his list, I think, is run defense. I think that's his biggest concern. And he does have some pieces that might be able to be added back into the mix with Gabe Rubio in October and Josh Burnham in October that might help that. But I still think Notre Dame is in a position to evolve into a playoff-worthy team. They're not anywhere near yet, but I don't see any dead ends where you say this is going to get them at some point. This is going to catch up to them. I know I'm not in the majority here with some people because they get fixated on Riley Leonard's passing yards. And quite honestly, today he had his best pass efficiency in his past 9 games. That goes back to his time at Duke. He had his best completion percentage, 74%. He threw a couple touchdown passes. It's not going to be an event. It's going to be a process. And I think as long as he's moving that forward, I think that's a good thing for Notre Dame football.
Yeah, there were a number of things that I liked about the offense. Jaden Greathouse's involvement in the passing game was important. His 34-yard touchdown catch was huge to jumpstart the offense. And like Riley Leonard pulling the trigger there, although that seems to be a pitch and catch. Like a quarterback at this level needs to make that play, and Riley Leonard did that. I think you have to be encouraged by the play calling on that the lead extending touchdown drive by Notre Dame in the fourth quarter. The screenplay to Jeremiah Love to end it was a great design and great timing, and worked out perfectly. I mean, Jeremiah Love gets all the way down to the 10-yard line before he gets touched. Had 4 offensive linemen out in front trying to block for him. And even earlier in that drive, you have the sort of Jaden Harrison play where he gets open off a route concept that makes it look like he's sort of clearing some room for Chris Mitchell on a third and medium. And then he sort of goes out on almost like a wheel route to the outside and is wide open. And then I know people will nitpick and say, well, that could have been a better throw by Riley Leonard. Yes, but I think those are some of the play calls that I think we expected to see from Mike Denbrock. I don't know that we've seen a ton of them this season, at least executed in the way that allows them to be seen. And so that was an encouraging sign to me of, okay, oh yeah, that's what this offense can do with the combination of play calling and talent that it has on it.
Yeah, I think the bye week is going to be huge for this team. Marcus is 3-0 in his bye weeks. I think Brian Kelly was 14-2 during his time at Notre Dame in his bye week. So they've both done a really good job to this point of being able to use that. I know Marcus mentioned after the game he was going to spend part of it recruiting, but I'm sure there's going to be self-scouting. And it's also an opportunity for some injured players to get healed. And let's talk about that. I mean, Notre Dame was down a lot of players at different points in this game. Boubacar Traore, their best pass rusher, was lost for most of the game. Let's see, Jack Kaiser, their most experienced linebacker, was gone for all or most of the second half. You didn't have Christian Gray at all in the game, so Leonard Moore makes his first collegiate start. Ben Morrison was out of the game for a while, so you had Jordan Clark move from nickel to outside corner. You had Rod Hurd II move from safety to nickel. Let's see, who am I forgetting? We had Jordan Faison, wide receiver, go out. There was a small stretch where the left guard,
Sam Pendleton
went down and Sullivan Absher was in. I think we've hit most of them, but the thing about this team was they kept rising to the occasion, especially on defense. They made some really big plays on defense. And you know, Louisville was 1 of 5 on 4th down conversion attempts, including the one with 47 seconds left in the game where I thought Clark had really good coverage. Watts was playing over the top with the safety, and there was no chance that pass was going to be completed on 4th down into the Notre Dame red zone.
Yeah, you just were kind of, when that ball was in there, you're just kind of hoping like, okay, just don't commit a penalty, right? Because it seems impossible that this is going to be completed, but you never know with the pushing and shoving that happens in those jump ball situations. Yeah, very impressed with how the defense keeps withstanding injuries and being able to muster up enough to get through this. Certainly wasn't the best game for the defense, but creating some turnovers. Leonard Moore in his first start creates a huge fumble on a big run by Tyler Shook and ends up basically playing the whole game. Xavier Watts in the right place at the right time picks off a pass that was deflected out of a wide receiver's hands to him. So the defense keeps coming up with big plays, even as it's missing players. And you mentioned like all the injuries that happened in the game. Notre Dame basically played the game without 2 of its running backs too, because Tevin Ford fumbles on the kick return, so he didn't get any action on the offense. And then Jadarian Price fumbles early, and then he doesn't play basically the rest of the game on offense either. So basically played with 2 running backs, Jeremiah Love and Aeneas Williams, for most of the game. And that's not what Notre Dame wants to do, but obviously felt had to do with those guys putting the ball on the ground. And a little bit surprised that Notre Dame couldn't get a little bit more room to run in the running game, especially with Jeremiah Love. He was limited. So Notre Dame's going to have to come up with ways to counter what defenses are doing against its rushing attack based on what it maybe isn't fearing from Notre Dame's passing attack.
Right. And you mentioned the Watts interception, and I noted to you just before that, and Watts kind of saved it. But on that play, there were 4 freshmen on defense on that play. Logan Thomas and Bryce Young were the ends. Kingston Viliamo also was one of the linebackers, and Leonard Moore was one of the cornerbacks on that play. So they have really used their depth, and these freshmen are getting an opportunity to shine, and I think they held up pretty well. It's going to be interesting to see. We don't know the extent of Boubacar Traore's injury, how long-term that would be. He was just ruled out for the rest of the game, and Marcus said something about a lower leg injury, but there's not a big protocol to go deep into the injury report like there used to be.
Yeah, well, he had ice on his left knee, so if it's not a left knee injury, he burned his left knee and they were icing it or something. So that's what it appeared to be. Obviously, we don't know the extent of it, but we'll see how that goes. That would be an incredible loss to have be down your two top Vipers would really hurt Notre Dame, sort of no matter what length of time that is. I think at this point, you just hope that Boubacar can come back this season. I mean, we're just speculating, but I think you sort of fear the worst when a knee injury happens. So we'll see what that diagnosis is. I thought he was playing really well, and what hurt. I think it'll be interesting to see what they do when Joshua Burnham gets back. If they have to play Joshua Burnham more on that Viper side than the strong side to the field.
Maybe he bounces back and forth.
Yeah, I think that would be a possibility. It's Logan Thomas got a quarterback hurry, did some nice things in pass rush. He's not a guy that I think's ready to play the 3 downs. Like he's a skinny dude. Like if he lined up at wide receiver, you would say, okay, that makes sense. But right now he's playing defensive end for Notre Dame as a freshman who
and for a very brief moment he had his first career touchdown, but it got called back because they rolled it as an incomplete pass and not a fumble.
Yeah, but he gets credit because Notre Dame has had so much trouble recovering fumbles, and he got on that one even though it wasn't eventually called a fumble. So special teams, we can't get out of here without talking about them. Giveth and taketh, the horrible fumble by Devin Ford that we mentioned, but Marty Biaggi's special teams units responded with the big play on the botched snap, punt snap by Louisville. Jordan Faison taken off of punt return duties, but put in to sort of help pressure the punter, and he dove at that ball to make sure the punter couldn't get it. The ball squirts free, and Kennedy Urlacher recovers it to set Indy up at the 4-yard line. That was a big moment in the game and really allowed Notre Dame's offense to continue to convert and build that lead.
Let me ask you a couple big picture questions before we get out of here.
All right.
One is, going into the bye week, we're 5 games in. Do you think that this team will make the playoff?
Well, I was going to respond that like Riley Leonard and say I'm not good at looking at the big picture. I'm very, very narrow focused.
Are you going bass fishing and golfing tomorrow too?
No, I will not be doing that. I would lean towards no. I haven't seen enough. The margin of error seems so small for Notre Dame. And I haven't seen enough to be confident that Notre Dame can just close this season by winning the rest of its games. It certainly wouldn't be surprising if it did, because the challenges that are there aren't that imposing. But Notre Dame doesn't always handle the less imposing task as best as they should. So I don't know that I can sit here and say that I expect Notre Dame to make the playoff and win out the rest of the regular season based on the way it's played leading into this bye week. What do you think?
I do think they're going to make it if they can slow down on the injuries. I do think that there's not a dead end. Now, again, like you mentioned, you look at the rest of the competition, and USC did come back against Wisconsin and winning, kind of kept their hopes alive for wherever they might end up and to be a good team in November. But I think I think Georgia Tech's going to be a difficult game. I think Navy all of a sudden could be a difficult game. They're undefeated and kind of on a roll. So I don't know that the schedule is as soft or remaining as it appears. Florida State might be the easiest team on that bunch.
We'll see who shows up in November.
They got waxed by SMU tonight. Okay, the second thing is, where do you think this whole Riley Leonard thing is headed? Do you think in November we're going to be having different conversations about him? Are people going to get used to him like an acquired taste.
No.
That, hey, yeah, maybe having a running quarterback that throws decent is okay to have. We don't need a 300-yard passer.
I have a hard time believing that the chorus of people that we hear from that aren't pleased with Riley Leonard's play are going to be convinced otherwise. Like, I'm just not
Well,
sure.
let me ask you this. Is he going to be the quarterback that Notre Dame needs that's going to maximize their potential? Do you think we're going legitimately, there's not going to be an argument, even though there's people that don't like him because he's a transfer. There's people that don't like him because of the NIL money. So let's throw that out of it. Is he going to be, at least in our minds, the best option Notre Dame with no questions about it when we get to November?
Yes, I don't know that those are the both of those questions as I heard them are the same. Like, I think he's the best option for Notre Dame, but is he what Notre Dame needs to win out? I don't necessarily know that both of those are yes. Does that make sense? Like, I don't know if Riley Leonard is
because you're not as I shouldn't say sure, but you're less optimistic about their playoff chances than I am.
Right. And I do think at some point to close the season, Notre Dame needs its quarterback to win it some games through the air. And Riley Leonard's going to have to prove that to us to me, to make me feel good about that continuing to happen. I do think there is progress there. I'm not trying to say there isn't, but I understand within reason why people are like, well, is this really what we can get the best out of? Does this get the best out of our offense? I don't necessarily think Steve Angeli would get better out of this offense than Riley Leonard would, but I also don't necessarily think that Riley Leonard is getting the most out of this offense right now. And certainly what right now is happening can be different from what happens in October and November. And I think from Notre Dame's point of view, you have to have confidence and belief that Riley Leonard is going to continue to grow, get more comfortable in this offense. And him and Mike Denbrock are going to see more eye to eye in terms of figuring out what works best with him in the game, what can take best advantage of his skill set, and what can he sort of read and deliver on when asked to make some progressions downfield.
Okay, my last one then is Marcus Freeman, 5 games into what has been a historically defining season. How do you feel about Marcus? Do you feel like you're seeing a coach improving, or do you still have a lot of questions about Marcus? I'm not limiting you to those two options, but I'm giving you some food for thought because it is caffeine time.
Yeah, I mean, I think to use one of Marcus's sayings, like it's the bumpy road to good or whatever, right? Like, there's lots of up and downs. There's moments where you're scratching your head. It's like, do they like the last offensive series, for instance, before obviously the kneel downs? Like, was it the best use of Notre Dame's talent to run Riley Leonard twice, basically into the line, and then roll him out to the right, hoping that one receiver was open who was double covered? I think Louisville saw it coming that Mitchell Evans would be the guy you'd be targeting on third and medium when you're rolling to your right. So like, for as good as the series was before that, the next series was so bad. Now, who does that fall on? Marcus Freeman? Does that fall on Mike Denbrock? I don't know who you want to place the blame on. But for every good sign you see from Marcus Freeman, I feel like there's like a bad side somewhere else. Like, to me, it's not Marcus Freeman's fault that Devin Ford fumbles on the opening kick return. Like, Devin Ford's a veteran player. They trust him to be able to do his job. He didn't do it. So you see moments of like, okay, things are starting to click here. Like, some of the fourth down decisions seem great, and then the other ones, like, do they really need to go for it at 4th and 3? And was a quarterback run the best option there? Like, when you go for so many fourth downs, you're going to get second guessed on some of them because you're not going to be able to get all of them. But he just, I don't know. I can understand. It's sort of a maddening experience. Like, okay, I want to believe in this. And then you see something that's like, oh man, why am I believing in this? So I understand folks that aren't exactly certain of what the trajectory is for Marcus Freeman here in year 3.
Okay, I've exhausted my questions, my big picture questions.
Yeah, post-game takeaways and big picture questions that Eric throws at Tyler. That's what we got to change the title. It's not quite as catchy, but we'll see what we can do. All right, before we get out of here, I wanted to remind our viewers about our partner Autograph. Not only can you find Inside ND Sports content on the Autograph app, which is free to download on Android and iOS devices, you can also buy stress-free, no-fee tickets to Notre Dame games. I even heard from a fan this week who bought tickets to the Louisville game after I recommended the app to him. Download the app using the QR code at the bottom of the screen here on YouTube in the corners, as you should be able to see, or by using the link listed in the video description below. Make sure you use referral code INDS so Autograph knows that we sent you. Also, please hit subscribe here. Hit that subscribe button before you close out of this video. You can also subscribe to us on InsideNDSports.com with a 30-day free trial using promo code NDYT. We want to hear your biggest takeaways from Saturday, so let us know in the comments. And that is all from us in South Bend. We will see you Monday night for Football Never Sleeps.